$100 today buys far less than it did a decade ago. Everyday essentials are soaring 70% higher. Inflation is quietly eating your savings. Learn how to stop it now. Inflation isn't loud. It doesn't kick down your door or announce itself like a crisis. It creeps, quietly, while you're busy living your life. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous. Most people don't feel inflation in one big shock. They feel it slowly, almost imperceptibly, until one day the numbers in their bank account look the same, but somehow buy far less. That's the trap. Think of your money like a bar of soap. The longer you hold it, the more it fades away, even if you don't use it. You place it on the counter, come back later, and it's just smaller. Not because you did anything wrong, but because that's how erosion works. Inflation does the same thing. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait for the right time. It simply dissolves the value of the dollars you've already earned. You might feel it when your grocery cart fills less than it used to, or when your rent rises but your paycheck stays exactly the same. Or when saving for a home, a car, or even an emergency fund feels like pushing against a treadmill that keeps speeding up. Inflation quietly turns financial security into a moving target, one that keeps drifting just out of reach. And here's the unsettling part. Doing nothing is still a choice, a costly one. The traditional belief that saving money is enough no longer holds up in a world where the purchasing power of those saved dollars shrinks year after year. It's like standing still in a river with a fast current. You may not move your feet, but the water pulls you backward anyway. This silent erosion creates a psychological illusion. Your account balance remains unchanged, so your brain assumes your security remains unchanged too. But behind the scenes, that stability is thinning. Your dollars are quietly losing their strength. What once protected you, cash in the bank, now needs protection itself, and this is where the real danger lies. Most people only wake up to inflation after it has already done the damage, after their savings have lost ground, after their future plans suddenly feel heavier, harder, further away. But the truth is, inflation leaves clues long before the impacts become overwhelming, if you know how to see them. And that brings us directly to the next crucial step, understanding why this matters so much. Because inflation isn't just about rising prices. It reshapes your entire financial trajectory, your retirement, your long-term goals, your ability to maintain the life you're building. All of it is directly influenced by how you respond to this silent threat. Let's break down why ignoring inflation is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make, and why recognizing its impact is the first step toward protecting your future. Inflation doesn't just affect what you pay today, it reshapes the life you'll be able to afford tomorrow. Most people underestimate this. They think higher prices are just temporary inconvenience, something that stings for a moment and then fades. But inflation is far more personal than a rising grocery bill. It reaches deep into your future and rewrites the math of every goal you've been planning for. Take retirement. The dream of stepping back someday, of having time, freedom, and dignity, depends entirely on the value of the money you're saving right now. But if inflation grows faster than your savings, your future lifestyle gets downgraded without your permission. The nest egg you imagined lasting 20 or 30 years may not even carry you halfway. That's how inflation quietly steals the years you worked so hard to earn. Home ownership isn't immune either. A house, once considered the foundation of long-term stability, becomes harder to afford as prices jump faster than salaries. Even if you're diligently saving for a down payment, inflation pushes the finish line further away. The same happens with buying a car. What once required disciplined planning now demands almost strategic warfare against rising costs. Every major purchase becomes a race you can't win by standing still. And then there's the day-to-day reality. Inflation forces you to make choices you never wanted to make. Cheaper groceries, delayed bills, canceled plans, cutting back on essentials. It's not just about money. It's about the erosion of comfort, freedom, and peace of mind. The pressure builds quietly but steadily until you feel the tension in every small decision. But perhaps the most fragile casualty is the emergency fund. The money you set aside as a lifeline, your safety net, loses its strength every single year inflation climbs. A medical bill, a job loss, a sudden repair. These moments don't wait for the economy to calm down. And in those moments, the dollars you saved need to be as strong as possible. Inflation weakens that protection, leaving people exposed when they need stability the most. This is why doing nothing is the most dangerous choice. In a stable world, inactivity might be neutral. But in an inflationary world, inactivity is a slow financial decline disguised as safety. It tricks you into believing you're protected because your balance hasn't changed, while the value behind those numbers fades quietly in the background. And this brings us to the heart of the issue, understanding what's actually driving inflation right now. Because to defend yourself, you first need to see the forces at work, clearly, simply, and without economic noise. Now, let's break down the current market context and the key indicators shaping this economic moment, so you know exactly what you're up against. To understand how inflation is impacting you right now, we need a clear look at the economic landscape, because once you see the forces at play, inflation stops feeling like a mysterious storm and starts looking like a pattern you can actually prepare for. As of the latest reports, inflation in the US is still hovering above the Federal Reserve's long-term target. Even though month-to-month numbers may show small dips or temporary relief, the annual rate remains high enough to noticeably reduce purchasing power. In simple terms, prices are not rising explosively, but they're not returning to normal either. They're settling at a level that keeps everyday life more expensive than it used to be. A major driver behind this has been energy costs. Oil prices continue to fluctuate due to geopolitical tensions, production cuts, and global demand. And whenever oil becomes unstable, everything connected to transportation, food shipments, manufacturing, logistics, feels the ripple effect. It's like a single gear slowing down and forcing the entire machine to strain harder. Interest rates are another key factor. To cool down inflation, the Federal Reserve pushed rates to multi-decade highs. That slows borrowing, cools spending, and attempts to settle the market. But the side effect is hard to ignore. Mortgages become more expensive, business loans tighten, and consumers feel trapped between higher prices and reduced financial breathing room. The economy becomes a balancing act where every adjustment solves one problem, but creates another. Global supply chains add another layer to the puzzle. Even though they've recovered from the pandemic-era chaos, they're still vulnerable. Delays, trade disputes, labor shortages, each disruption adds friction to the system, and that friction shows up in the final price tag of the products Americans depend on daily. The data may sound technical, but the picture is very human. These forces blend together to create the inflation you experience every time you check out at a store, fill your tank, or compare prices on major purchases. It's not one single cause. It's a chain reaction across multiple parts of the world, all converging on your wallet. But here's the key point. You don't need to be an economist to understand how inflation works. Once the mechanics are clear, you gain the power to respond, adapt, and protect your finances with intention rather than fear. And that leads us directly into the most crucial part of this entire conversation. Truly understanding what inflation is, at its core, and how it quietly chips away at your savings. The explanation is simpler than most people expect, and once you see it, everything else finally makes sense. Let's break the concept down in the simplest, most practical way possible. At its core, inflation is simple. It's when the value of your money decreases over time, making everything you buy cost more. That's the entire concept in one sentence, but the real power comes from understanding what that feels like in everyday life. Because inflation isn't just an economic term, it's an experience every American has lived through, often without realizing it. Imagine your wealth as an ice cube. The longer it sits, the more it melts away. You're not touching it, you're not breaking it, you're not doing anything wrong, yet it still shrinks. Slowly, quietly, predictably. That melting represents inflation at work. Your dollars look the same, but they hold less strength, less buying power, less security than before. The real trick of inflation is psychological. Because your money doesn't physically change shape, you don't see the damage happening. It's invisible erosion. You check your bank account and the numbers look familiar, stable, comforting. But behind those numbers, the value is dissolving drop by drop. That's why so many people underestimate inflation. They judge by what they see instead of what's actually happening. Picture going to the store with a $100 bill. A year ago, that $100 might have filled your cart. Today, it might only cover the basics. Nothing about the bill itself changed, its power did. Inflation is the force that steals what that bill used to provide, and if you let it continue unchecked, the slow melt becomes a deep loss. This is why saving money in a traditional sense, letting it sit untouched in a low-interest account, can actually work against you. While your balance remains flat, prices around you keep climbing. It creates an illusion of safety while quietly draining the strength of your hard-earned dollars. Your financial future becomes lighter, thinner, less resilient, even though your habits stayed responsible. And this melting effect touches every part of your life. It makes long-term goals heavier and everyday choices tighter. It pressures families, reshapes budgets, and forces people to work harder just to maintain what they already had. Inflation, when ignored, doesn't just melt wealth, it melts stability. But here's the good news. Once you understand this concept clearly, you finally have the power to respond strategically. You begin to see that protecting your money isn't about controlling inflation itself. It's about controlling your reaction to it. It's about making your ice cube stronger, slower to melt, more resilient to change. And that's where things finally shift from awareness to action. Because knowing what inflation is means nothing if you don't know how to defend yourself against it. That's the part that turns knowledge into real financial power. So now, let's move into the most practical and empowering section of all. The specific steps you can take, starting today, to safeguard your savings and outsmart inflation before it chips away any further. Once you understand that inflation is constantly melting the value of your money, the next step is taking control, because the people who protect their financial future aren't the ones who panic. They're the ones who prepare. And the truth is, you don't need a finance degree or a six-figure salary to beat inflation. You just need the right strategy, executed with consistency and confidence. Step 1. Invest in inflation-resistant assets. Leaving money idle is like leaving your ice cube under the sun. To slow the melt, you need assets that grow over time. Index funds give you exposure to the overall market, which historically outpaces inflation. Treasury inflation-protected securities. Tips adjust with inflation, giving your savings a built-in shield. Even commodities, like energy or precious metals, can serve as buffers during inflation spikes. The goal isn't complexity, it's movement. Money that grows is money that resists erosion. Step 2. Increase your income power. Inflation hits hardest when your income stays still. That's why negotiating a raise, developing new skills, or picking up a side hustle can make a massive difference. In a world where everything becomes more expensive, increasing what you earn isn't ambition, it's protection. Even a small bump in income can offset rising costs and give you more room to invest, save, and breathe. Your earning power is one of your strongest financial tools, and strengthening it directly weakens inflation's impact. Step 3. Cut unnecessary expenses with precision, not deprivation. Fighting inflation isn't about living miserably. It's about living intelligently. Start by auditing your subscriptions, recurring payments, and habits that drain money without adding value. A few cancellations, smarter grocery planning, or choosing budget-friendly alternatives can save hundreds of dollars monthly. Those savings can be redirected toward growth, turning small adjustments into powerful financial leverage. Step 4. Diversify how you save. Relying on cash alone is one of the biggest mistakes people make during inflationary periods. Cash is stable in appearance, but fragile in value. Diversifying your savings between investments, emergency funds, and long-term accounts reduces your risk and strengthens your financial resilience. It's the difference between balancing on one leg or standing firmly on four. Step 5. Use high-yield savings accounts to reduce erosion. Not all savings are equal. A high-yield account won't beat inflation entirely, but it slows the melt by giving your money a stronger interest rate while keeping it accessible. It's the ideal place for short-term goals and emergency funds, money that needs safety but shouldn't sit powerless. Taken together, these steps transform your financial life from reactive to proactive. You stop watching inflation happen to you, and you start moving in ways that protect your future. Each action builds strength, stability, and confidence, one decision at a time. And now that you know how to take practical action, it's equally important to understand exactly how these strategies play out in the real world, through the successes and mistakes of people who faced inflation head-on. So let's look at a real example that brings this entire strategy to life. Sometimes the best way to understand the true impact of inflation is to see it through real people. Two different paths, two different outcomes, shaped entirely by the choices they made. Let's start with Daniel. Daniel was a hard worker, disciplined, careful with money, proud of his savings. For years, he kept nearly everything in a traditional bank account. It felt safe, it felt responsible, and because the number in his account never went down, he assumed he was doing the right thing. But as prices climbed year after year, something subtle and painful happened. His money didn't stretch the way it used to. Groceries cost more, gas cost more, rent went up, and despite doing everything right, Daniel found himself falling behind. He wasn't spending recklessly. He wasn't earning less. His savings were simply losing power in silence. The ice cube of his wealth was melting, and he never noticed it until it was too late. Compare that to Maya. She wasn't a financial expert either, but she understood one thing clearly. Staying passive was dangerous. When inflation started rising, she diversified her approach. She moved part of her savings into index funds and tips. She kept her emergency fund in a high-yield account. She learned a new digital skill that boosted her income within 6 months. She reviewed her subscriptions and cut out the ones she barely used. These were not dramatic, risky moves. They were small, intentional decisions, and the difference they created was enormous. While Daniel watched his stable bank balance lose purchasing power, Maya watched her investments grow. While Daniel felt squeezed by rising prices, Maya felt the pressure, but she also felt prepared. She didn't beat inflation perfectly. No one does. But she fought back effectively. And because she acted early, her financial future became stronger, not weaker, even during economic turbulence. These two stories reveal one simple truth. Inflation doesn't reward effort, it rewards action. Daniel worked hard for his money, but Maya made her money work hard for her. Their income levels, ages, and backgrounds didn't matter nearly as much as their decisions. And that's exactly why understanding risk is so important. Because once people realize they need to act, many rush into investments without knowing what to avoid. They chase inflation-proof shortcuts. They follow trends. They take advice from unverified sources. And while trying to fix one problem, they create a much bigger one. So before taking your next step, it's crucial to know the hidden dangers, the common traps, and the risks that come with protecting your wealth in uncertain times. Because the right strategy can safeguard your future, but the wrong one can cost you years of progress. Let's break down what to watch out for so you can make smarter, safer decisions with complete confidence. When it comes to defending your money from inflation, it's tempting to believe there's a one-size-fits-all solution. The financial world is full of products, strategies, and inflation-proof claims that promise protection, security, and growth. But here's the reality. Not every investment marketed as safe actually is, and ignoring the risks can undo all the careful planning you've done so far. Take cryptocurrency, for example. It's exciting, trendy, and offers the potential for rapid growth, but its volatility is extreme. Prices can double, or have, overnight. A strategy that seems inflation-resistant today can become a financial disaster tomorrow if you aren't fully aware of the risks. Emotional investing, buying because everyone else is or reacting to fear, turns what looks like protection into a gamble. Real estate is another area where perception often outweighs reality. Property has historically been a hedge against inflation, but markets fluctuate. Interest rate spikes can make mortgages unaffordable, property values can dip, and liquidity is limited. You can't instantly turn a house into cash if you need it. Many people overlook these factors, thinking owning property automatically shields them from inflation, when in fact, it exposes them to other financial pressures if approached without care. Even stock market investments carry their own risks. While equities tend to grow over the long term, short-term dips can be severe. Inflation-resistant sectors like commodities, energy, or consumer staples are not immune to global shocks, supply chain disruptions, or geopolitical events. Relying solely on these instruments without understanding the market cycles can leave your portfolio exposed. The most important takeaway is this: knowledge and preparation are your first lines of defense. Avoid rushing into investments labeled inflation-proof without fully evaluating the risks. Conduct research, seek professional guidance if needed, and consider how each asset fits your personal financial goals, timeline, and risk tolerance. Emotional reactions to fear or hype are often the biggest threats to your financial security, not inflation itself. Transparency and understanding these risks doesn't just protect your money, it builds confidence. You stop seeing inflation as a mysterious, uncontrollable force and start seeing it as a challenge you can navigate strategically. Awareness turns fear into informed action, and action is what separates those who struggle under inflation from those who thrive despite it. Being cautious doesn't mean being inactive. It means taking steps that are calculated, deliberate, and aligned with long-term security. Each investment decision, each adjustment in strategy, is a tool for strengthening your defenses. When risks are understood, your choices become more powerful, your money becomes more resilient, and the melting ice cube of wealth, while still vulnerable, can be managed with precision. Understanding the potential pitfalls prepares you to take bold yet calculated action. It ensures that when you execute your plan against inflation, every move is intentional, every decision informed, and every step geared toward maintaining and growing your financial health. Now that you are aware of the risks and how to navigate them, the next phase is to recognize the peak moment of empowerment, the point where understanding, strategy, and action converge to give you full control over your financial future. Inflation is real. It's constant. It doesn't take breaks for holidays, recessions, or even for you to catch your breath. Every day it quietly chips away at the value of your money, your plans, and the security you've worked so hard to build. It doesn't announce itself with a warning. It moves in increments so subtle, so gradual, that it's easy to underestimate. But the truth is stark. Ignoring it, hoping it will magically disappear, or assuming it won't affect you personally is the most dangerous mistake of all. Yet, despite its relentless presence, inflation is not unbeatable. This is where the story shifts from worry to empowerment. Because while you cannot control global oil prices, interest rate decisions, or supply chain disruptions, you can control how you respond. You can take steps today that will protect your wealth, strengthen your security, and safeguard your future. Knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is transformation. Picture your financial journey like a ship navigating a stormy sea. Inflation is the waves, the wind, the currents that try to push you off course. You can either let the ship drift and hope it survives, or you can grab the wheel, read the currents, adjust your sails, and steer with purpose. Those who understand the mechanics of inflation, who plan, diversify, and take action, are the ones who stay afloat. They don't eliminate the storm. They learn to navigate it. The real empowerment comes in realizing that action doesn't have to be dramatic to be effective. Small, deliberate choices compound over time. Reallocating a portion of savings into inflation-protected investments, enhancing skills to increase earning potential, cutting expenses that drain resources, and diversifying cash. All of these steps are like adding anchors, sails, and navigational tools to your ship. They create resilience. They give you control. They make the difference between watching your wealth slowly melt away and actively protecting it. It's also about mindset. Inflation can feel threatening because it targets something deeply personal, your sense of security. But reframing it as an opportunity transforms fear into focus. Every decision you make to counteract its effects is a declaration. You will not let invisible forces dictate your financial life. You are not a passive observer. You are the strategist, the navigator, and the protector of your own future. And here's the most important realization. The moment to act is always now. Waiting, hesitating, or assuming it'll stabilize is a luxury that costs more with every passing month. The longer you delay, the more the ice cube of your savings melts, and the harder it becomes to regain lost ground. But taking deliberate action today, even in small steps, builds momentum. Each decision compounds. Each choice strengthens your defenses. Each action pushes back against the silent erosion of your financial security. This peak moment is about clarity and courage. Inflation may be relentless, but so is human agency. You have the tools, the strategies, and the understanding to fight back. The power isn't hypothetical. It's tangible, actionable, and within your reach. When knowledge meets execution, when preparation meets intention, you shift from being vulnerable to being empowered. And once you've harnessed this awareness, you can consolidate all the strategies we've discussed. Protective investments, income growth, careful budgeting, diversification, and informed risk-taking into a cohesive plan. A plan that ensures that your money, your effort, and your future aren't just surviving inflation. They are thriving despite it. Now that you fully understand the hidden threat of inflation, the silent erosion of your hard-earned money, and the exact steps you can take to fight back, the next move is entirely in your hand. But knowledge alone isn't enough. Action is what transforms understanding into real results. And the first action you can take today is to join a community dedicated to financial clarity, strategy, and empowerment. Fiscal Foresight. By subscribing to our channel, you're not just hitting a button, you're signaling that you are ready to take control of your financial future. Every video, every insight, every strategy we share is designed to give you tools that make a tangible difference in your day-to-day life, in your long-term plans, and in your ability to protect what matters most. This is where abstract concepts like inflation, market shifts, and investment risks become clear, practical, and actionable. If you found value in this video, the next simple step is to hit that like button. It's a small action with a big impact, helping us reach more viewers who, like you, deserve to understand how to preserve and grow their wealth. Each like signals to us, and to the world, that financial literacy isn't optional, it's essential. We also want to hear from you. Comment below with your strategies, experiences, or questions about inflation. What steps have you taken to protect your savings? Have you tried diversifying your investments, negotiating your salary, or cutting unnecessary expenses? Sharing your insights not only reinforces your own understanding, but also creates a community of people learning together. Your story could be the tip that helps someone else navigate these challenging times more effectively. And don't keep this knowledge to yourself. Share this video with friends, family, and colleagues. Inflation is a universal challenge, but it's one that can be managed when more people understand it. By spreading these strategies, you're helping others protect their wealth, secure their futures, and take control of their financial lives. Think of it as giving someone the map to avoid the pitfalls that catch so many by surprise. Remember, the battle against inflation isn't fought in a single day. It's a journey of informed decisions, consistent action, and continuous learning. Fiscal Foresight is here to guide you at every step, giving you clarity in the complexity, strategy in uncertainty, and confidence when facing economic challenges. So, take this moment, hit subscribe, tap like, leave a thoughtful comment, and share this video with those who need it most. Every action reinforces your financial agency, strengthens our community, and spreads knowledge that protects real people from real financial risks. Your future doesn't wait, and neither should you. The knowledge, the strategies, and the power to fight back against inflation are all within your reach. Make the choice today to stay informed, stay prepared, and stay empowered with Fiscal Foresight.